Hello, my name is Christoph Salge and this is the 2025 winner presentation for the AI Settlement Generation Challenge in Minecraft. Enjoy! So, what is the GDMC? It's a competition where your goal is to make an algorithm that creates a good Minecraft settlement without human intervention for an unseen map. And our goal here is to be as good as a human, judged by human players. Initially, 8 years ago, we were inspired by these amazing time lapses where people get together and jointly, co-creatively build whole Minecraft settlements that have to fulfill all kinds of criteria. And we thought back then that this is a challenging and interesting field for AI to get into and a bit understudied. At this point, generative AI is all the rage, but with 8 years running, we're one of the longest running generative AI challenges and have started long before LLMs became really big. So today I'm going to show you a yet still somewhat unsolved problem and how far we've come into making settlements in Minecraft automatically. So how does the challenge actually work? If you want to participate, you will write some code that can basically take in a map of Minecraft, read in all the information, and then generate a settlement. You submit this map as code, and this year all code is available via GitHub. So in the link below or via our wiki, you can find all the GitHub links to everything you see here today if you want to try it out yourself. You submit this code, and it then gets run on specific predefined locations on Minecraft maps. These are not known beforehand, and the algorithms have to figure out, without human intervention, what they're going to build there. So the algorithms build settlements. These then get sent out to our judges, a mixture of like community members, but also expert game designers, academics, architects, who look at these and score them on several criteria. Namely, adaptivity, as in how well does it actually fit in the terrain that's already there, and how well does the settlement reflect the environment, like is this a good spot to build a harbor or a fortress? So there's lots of stuff that goes in there, and it's probably one of the more challenging parts to create with a generative AI, not just in an empty setting, but reactive towards what the terrain has done or what other people might have done. Then there's functionality. And here, Minecraft settlements, or settlements in general, have to fulfill all kinds of needs. Security, lighting, being able to traverse the settlement itself. And all of these things come together and have to be solved at the same time, together with all the other criteria. Then there's also the evocative narrative. Most real-life settlements tell stories, both about the people that live in them and how they've come about. And this kind of environmental storytelling makes a lot of cities, but also other artifacts, unique and special. And the question is, can an algorithm imbue artifacts with this kind of property? Does it give people a sense of history and a sense of, well, story when they look at something? And then there's aesthetics, which is not just about making something that looks nice, but also about avoiding all the mistakes that humans intuitively would have done, like putting a house right over a cliff edge or making something that's really unbalanced and oddly proportioned. So let's look at the 2025 results. In pure numbers, this is the 8th year we're running this, and we had 6 team submissions this year, and they were judged by 13 judges. And before we go any further, let's watch a video together that was done by one of our community members with permission, and that showcases this year's entry. number 3 is, for those of you who have been following us for a long time, a returning entry. The Pandas are back. So the Panda team has, with this year's entry, Panda Revival, played again to their strengths. It's an Asian-inspired massive build that does lots of terraforming and doesn't score particularly well in the adaptivity because it does flatten out massive amounts of landscapes. But there is an interesting and very, very heavily engineered underground structure that has lots of elements. The fireworks are back, there's lots of pandas, there's city walls, there's lots of elements that they've been added to over the years and years. And also, they've now taken up this element where there's a bit of history looking back. So there's a museum looking at the previous panda based entries in previous years, telling a continuous stories about the pandas living their lives, falling to environmental catastrophe, having to go underground, and now reconquering the surface after they've come back. So Panda Revival, the pandas are back, and they're this year's number 3. And number 2 is also a returning entry, the Shadow Wizard Money Gang. Actually, they've also came in second last year. Again, they have this very nice, sprawling settlement with lots of houses, tightly packed, a bit of a city wall, a very atmospheric settlement, nice lighting, lots of functionality, and under the hood, they've revamped big parts of their code. And we'll probably see them again for another entry in a second. And number 1 is an entry called Gaussianly Filtered, which is a really, really nice pastoral setting. And there's lots of technical details under the hood that you can check out in Gaussian filters, image processing. So composing a settlement with these kind of roads and buildings all kind of neatly arranged, creating this really nice atmosphere isn't trivial. We've seen over the years that just placing the buildings and putting them in the right spaces is actually quite difficult. But on top of this, this year's entry has a bit of like an artistic angle. So in the very center of this, there is a massive floating superstructure, and it represents some kind of AI that showed up to this pastoral setting and initially made the life of the villagers a lot easier. But then all they did was mine resources that they had to kind of sacrifice to the AI, which kind of started more and more controlling their lives. And then it created this massive superstructure, which is made of some very kind of computing blocks that are quite novel to Minecraft, but incidentally also are so resource hungry that if you're running this map, your whole game experience actually slows down because all the computing power is sucked up by the massive like AI superstructure. So they've scored the first place with this, both for they believe the pastoral, well, nice design settlement, but also the kind of artistic procedural narrative, because the story I'm telling you now has some other Easter eggs and some really interesting tidbits, and they're hidden around the village, both told in books, but also in kind of environmental storytelling elements. And we've also this year run again the Chronicle challenge, which is about making a text that is in some way about the specific settlement. So not just any text, but a text that specifically reflects the settlement in question. And this year we'll actually have, I think, the first strong showing of a large language model. So this year's winner of the Chronicle challenge is also Shadow Wizard Money Gang. And they've created a book about each separate settlement that takes an information from the environment, in this case specifically the biome information, and uses this to both create a story about where the settlement is located and what kind of cultural unique elements the various societies have that are kind of a response to the environment they find themselves in. So this first foray into kind of LLMs is still, you know, quite generic, but it already creates like an interesting grounded narrative where the game world then relates to the actual textual book, and this was applauded by our judges. So that's it for this year. This is the overall results table. You'll see we had 6 entries, and a clear winner was Gaussian Filters, so congratulations again to them. And at this point, I'm just going to say, well, If you want to get involved with the GDMC AI Settlement Generation Challenge, you should check out our wiki or join our Discord. There's an active community of people who like to help you get started. You can download the maps generated from this year. So if you just want to play the stuff you've seen here in the video, you can do that. But you can also download the code if you want to build your own generator, or if you want to include some of these elements in a mod. There's also entries going back for the last 7 years. And we'll be running this again next year. So if you're interested, you can get started now. If you think you can make a generator that can build a better settlement, you could be featured here next year. So with that, thanks for watching, and take care. Bye-bye.